You are listening to Claret Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello, welcome back to the Claret Blue podcast. My name is Dan Rolinson. I'm back from my house move. I'm joined as always by Ashley Preece. Ash, how are you, mate?
All right, yeah, just getting over the Southampton trip. I was tapping away until 3 a.m, so to get the Villa fans what they want and the content more. So yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, catching up on sleep and back in it today, back in action today, and quick turnaround, isn't it? West Ham Wednesday, so what's your deadline day today? So we'll catch up on that. Yeah, so yeah, I'm well, mate. All good. Villa rocking and rolling again, so back to winning ways. So good start to the week.
Yeah, we're also 9 hours into a 12-hour shift at the moment, so bear with us if there's any little errors here. There are still 3 hours to go yet. For those watching live on Facebook, if you're watching this not live, this has come out on Tuesday morning, so 2nd of February. The deadline is now closed as you're watching this, but for those watching live, it's only 9:15, as you can see over Ash's left shoulder there. So the deadline isn't other side. Deadline isn't officially closed yet, but it's expected that Villa aren't going to bring anybody in at this hour. There's no kind of murmurings. You know, last year you were thinking, oh, Tom Carroll might happen or whatever, and it suddenly happens out of nowhere. There's no murmurings at this point, so it's unlikely Villa would bring anybody in. Possibly some outs might be finalised in the next hour or so, but again, we're not going to jump on for a podcast if somebody leaves on loan, for example. So this is a little bit of a roundup for where we are as it stands at 9 o'clock on Monday. Morgan Sanson, the only player in to the door for January this year for Villa, didn't come on against Southampton, so we had to see the impact that he's going to make. But also, you know, one to kind of settle in over the next few weeks and months, and he's not going to come in and be starting 90 minutes straight away regardless. So we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the specifics of the transfers in a moment. But first, Ash, how do you kind of assess the window so far? Are you disappointed that we've not made any more signings than Sanson, or are you happy with what we've got?
No, I'm very happy. Very pragmatic approach, I'd say. Obviously, Conor Hourihane left, didn't he? And that started the domino effect, as it were. So
yeah.
Villa sounded out Morgan Sanson back in December. So I've got a sneaky feeling Hourihane perhaps knocked on Smith's door weeks ago when he was probably out of the team for Jacob Ramsey. And so the Sanson deal was bubbling away for weeks on end. And obviously Villa were turned away with bids. And they managed to shake a deal in the end of £14 million, perhaps rising to 15.5. So a good value deal. That was the key from Smith's take from that. Good value, and the strike while the iron was hot. They're getting a player with proven pedigree, real technician, Champions League, Marseille as well. The demands there put on them by the fans as well. So he's a big time player. Very very good piece of business, that one. Obviously yet to see him yet, so proof will be in the pudding. But assessing the window, as it were, the winter window is never ideal. It's a tough one to crack, as Villa found out last year with their business there, getting Boya Baston in. So we've come a long way since then. And I think we're in much better shape now, hence where they are in the table, 8th. You know what I mean? 3 points off 5th and flying high and back to winning ways. And I think the squad did a piece on the squad today. The depth's brilliant for me. Okay, there's possibly question marks at left back with Neil Taylor and backing up Matt Target. Obviously, the fans are coming in the droves here in the comments saying we should have had a striker. But it'll be Ollie Watkins all the way. He's robust enough. He's going to play every game, regardless of form. He's going to get goals as well. 8 goals from 19 games, 1 in 2. Not too bad. Should have had a lot more since then as well. So Smith's going to stick with him. He'll have Keenan Davis on the bench. I don't know what fans are thinking about. Should Villa move for another striker? For me, I think the market's not there to do that. The pool's very small as it is.
Yeah.
Would you have taken a Diego Costa, the cost he demanded, or Josh King, reported 125 grand a week? No, you wouldn't have. So, yeah, I think Villa are boxing clever here. They're not panicking. They've got a settled squad, a good squad, and a real united squad as well, given the performance against Southampton. So I'm happy, Dan. I don't know what fans are thinking, but I'm more than happy.
We've mentioned loads of times, Ash, in the ones that we've done about January never being a great window to buy. It's all about fixing little minor problems rather than major surgery, which is totally fine by me. I would rather do no business at all than a Danny Drinkwater on loan and a Borja Baston that features for 20 minutes or whatever it was. Like, what's the point? It's not worth it, is it? The deal has got to be right for Villa. We're not desperate for it at the moment. Yes, like you said, if Watkins gets injured, it leaves us light. But Wesley's coming back in the next few weeks or months. He'll be like a new signing. Technically, he's not played for over a year, and he was a new signing anyway. We only saw him for 19 games or so. You've got Keenan Davis, who can offer a job. Yes, he's not going to score 20 goals a season, but he offers something to a squad. And he's still around here. He's been here for a few managers. They obviously see something in him. And then you've got the likes of Lou Barry on the fringes as well. If you got absolutely desperate, and we were saying just off air that you've got Traore, El Ghazi, and even Grealish could play as a false nine if you were really seriously desperate. If you had no options whatsoever. I would rather that than go for a Josh King, like some of the comments are saying, and he wants 120 grand a week for a championship player that's not even performing in the championship. That's a panic buy for somebody who's threatened at the bottom of the Premier League, an Albion or somebody like that. Not for Villa. Pushing for Europe, Josh King isn't going to make the difference. He'll sit on the bench, and if Ollie Watkins bangs in another 15, we're paying 120 grand a week, and he'll never feature.
Yeah,
unless I think you only sign a player for that money if he's going to come in and make a difference, and he's not going to oust Watkins from the side. We're not going to change for two up front. So you just have to hope that Watkins is strong enough, or doesn't get a freak injury like the Wesley one, because there's a couple of people saying he doesn't look like the player that picks up injuries, but a bad tackle can happen to anybody. So
exactly.
providing none of that happens, then Watkins will play every single game and probably score close to 20 goals. As you miss there. But yeah, you mentioned Diego Costa, a 6-month deal. It's not the character, is it? We hear a lot from Dean Smith about the character of the side and building a side of good personalities. And I mean, I'm sure Diego Costa's a lovely bloke in reality, but as a footballer, he's a bit of a word I can't say probably. But you know what I mean? He doesn't fit the mould. So I feel like Villa would have been desperate if they'd have signed a striker. If there's a right deal, I think the Sanson deal is probably a perfect example of it. It was a good player for a good price, and that makes sense to do it as a deal. 30 million they wanted last year. It's half that cost now at 15 million or 14 and a half.
Yep.
Champions League pedigree, good age, but it replaces Harahan, who wasn't playing either. So you're already upgrading him. A little bit sad to see Harahan go, as I said on Twitter the day he left, but it's football, isn't it? It's not a sentimental business. So
he's loving it as well. Harahan, he scored too, so he's playing football. Great to see. So Swansea picked up a hell of a player there. So yeah, I'm pleased with Connor. Deserves to be out playing every week.
Yeah.
What a great servant he's been, by the way.
1.5 million.
Yeah, bargain. Just circumstance, and he's enjoying his football again.
What do you think of Guilbert? Because I've been,
Guilbert.
For those that don't know, somebody did notice in the comments I'm in a different place. I'm in a new house now, so eagle-eyed, whoever that was. So I had no internet for like 2 days. I've barely been checking my phone because I've been busy. I didn't see any of the Southampton game. I wasn't even aware that Guilbert had left on loan. It's probably terrible for a podcast host. What do you feel about that? Because at one stage, you're looking at him going, obviously Matty Cash comes in this summer and he's obviously the first choice. But last year, there's moments with Guilbert where you think, I really like him, good on the slide tackle, fights for the shirt, good personality for who you want in the squad.
Yeah.
Probably be good backup to Matty Cash, but doesn't really feature and isn't happy to stick around, I wouldn't have thought. So part of me feels like I appreciate that, go elsewhere and play, and hopefully he comes back in the summer because Elmo's contract runs out, I think. But for now, it's 6 months that he's going to sit on the bench at Villa, so you might as well go. I've got nothing against that personally, and Villa don't really lose out because Matty Cash is outstanding, and if the worst happens to him, then Elmo comes in at right back for a few games, and we'd be semi-okay with that, to be honest, as well.
Definitely, yeah. Guilbert, just victim of circumstance. Another good value deal. Smith said, asked Smith about Guilbert on Saturday, and he just said Matty Cash was there to be got at. They got him from the Championship, and he's proved a class act, hasn't he? I think he's better on the ball, Cash is, than perhaps Guilbert. But yeah, I've been a fan of Guilbert since his arrival. Was it £4.5 million? Bit of a bargain, to be honest. His last game that sticks out for me was Arsenal at home in Project Restart. He marked Aubameyang out the game, and I thought he had a decent year last year considering what went on. But yeah, proper defender, any Guilbert, give his all for the shirt. Really good character, and we'll see him back in the summer. We'll see how he gets on in Strasbourg. I'll be keeping an eye on him, see if he's playing games and getting the clean sheets and getting the plaudits over there. So he'll be come back in the summer. I think he can give Cash some real good competition at right back. But both quick players, good in the tackle. So that's a good option to have for Villa. With Almo's contracts, coming to an end. So that'll be assessed in the summer, and we'll go from there. So yeah, you can't blame Guilbert for going out.
Do I remember Guilbert playing some games at left back as well, either for us or the team he was at previous? Well, I totally made that up.
It's in there. I can't remember Target being out for a while for that to happen, and Smith will always play Taylor in.
And
Maybe
it was where he was before. I've just totally made up, but it just feels like if you've got Cash, Target, and then Guilbert, you back up to either side in an emergency. We'll get some questions in the comments. Leon Bland says, Dan Ash, who realistically do we go for in the summer? Positions or players that you want in? Now, when people ask for players, I always just have a brain freeze and can't think of a single footballer that I like. Positions, I suppose that's an easier thing to answer. Striker is probably where you assess that in summer. What was Wesley's comeback like in February, March, April, whenever he comes back? If he looks nowhere near it, you've got to sign a striker in summer. Where Villa finish is also a determining factor. If they get into Europe, is Ollie Watkins even the man to start up front, or are you going bigger than him? So it's difficult to say, we need this, because we don't know where Villa are going to end up yet. But kind of generic position-wise, I think possibly a centre-half. You maybe need to upgrade. I would argue at one point I would have said left-back here, but Matty Target has been excellent this season as well, and I don't think you're going to get much of an upgrade on him unless you go and spend 40, 50 million. Possibly midfielder, depending on what happens with Barkley and Douglas Luiz, whether they go to Man City or Chelsea. And then obviously the age-old question is going to rear its ugly head every single transfer window, and that's whether Jack Grealish is still here or not. And I firmly believe he still would be here if Villa were pushing for top six, or were in the top six. But obviously, again, if he was to leave, that would be a position you need to fill as well. So I don't look at our side anymore and think, that's a weak spot we need to fix, or I'm not quite sure on him. I think the whole first 11, arguably maybe a winger, the whole first 11 is something that I look at when the team sheet comes out an hour before kickoff, and I'm like, happy with that, solid all over. Not quite the depth on the bench and the quality there, but that's something that improves over time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. As for what they'll address in the summer, Villa could have a potentially £50 million strike force on their hands with Wesley and Watkins, don't forget. So they're going to give up on Wesley just yet, £22 million addition, hoping to get him back as soon as possible. Long old injury, that one. I think that perhaps look at a striker. I think I'd assess Davies' situation in the summer. I'd like to see him get some regular run of games in the Championship. So, he could do the loan move perhaps. But other positions you mentioned, obviously Neil Taylor, his contract's coming up to an end. So I think Matt Target needs some competition to keep his form up and performances up. So a young left back who's not playing elsewhere, someone like Brandon Williams at Man United or something like that, to come in at left back and push Target really. Because I say you get your best out of players, the competition is there. So I think obviously the Barkley question will be asked as well. I spoke to Chelsea reporter Sam Inkersol today, just for a lowdown on Thomas Tuchel, how he's been getting on, and he's been bringing players in from the cold, so he's give everyone a clean slate at Chelsea. So he'll have a discussion with Barkley once his loan finishes, and likewise Villa with Ross as well. I'll speak to him, see how his loan move goes. I want to see him be injury free now from now until May. Obviously, 60-day layoff that's affected him. He's been off the pace the previous games, but he came back with the bang at Southampton, got his goal, looked well. So, I think Villa will ask the Barkley question. We'll see what the situation is in the summer. Striker, you mentioned Watkins, Wesley, Davies are the only three senior ones there. So, I think, they'll look at bringing a striker in, but all depends on where they're finishing the table.
Yeah,
I can see him giving the top six a good go. Perhaps top 8 is more realistic, but they're on fire. Just addressing the squad. Bjorn Engels, he ain't kicked a ball in almost a year now, so I don't know where he's at fitness wise or whatever. But obviously, Konsa and Mings all the way, isn't it? They've been outstanding this season for me. So little fine tweaks. But we'll see how it goes over the next 19 games and see where they're at. But I think they're in a really healthy position today and moving forward. So really pleased with how the squad's shaping up. And got some youngsters to come through as well. So happy days. I don't know what the fans are saying there.
We'll come on to those 19 games in a moment. Just to clarify the Guilbert thing, Baz Wilkes says Guilbert played left back in a cup match and scored. That was against Crewe. I hadn't made it up, which is rare. I actually got something right. At a push, you'd have him back up left back as well. There's a couple of shouts for Jordan and Marvey, Rico Henry. So a few people asking for left back. Edouard as a striker, also as an option that you maybe go in and look for again in the summer. But again, it's weird in the transfer window as it ends, everyone goes, this one's ended. What's happening in the next one? What do Villa need to do in the summer? That'll be the question that people are asking after this. We're not going to know until we know where Villa finish, because they're business will be very different whether they finish in the top 6 or not. Now, a year ago, this would have been very different if it was even going to be in the Premier League or not, to what their business was going to be like. So if Villa make it into the top 6, I think they'll spend big in a few areas just to improve the overall quality of the squad again. If Villa finish, say, 10th, I think they'll make a few minor tweaks throughout to try and push them on to that next step. But if, like I said, if Villa do get into that top 6 or better, they will go out and spend a massive amount on a couple of players here and there. Whether that's a striker or whatever, it remains to be seen. Any more questions before we go for the live element of this podcast? What do you think about the wingers, Ash?
Wingers, interesting.
Is that somewhere we could have improved? Because obviously Jack plays out on that left side now. So you've got El Ghazi, Traore and Trezeguet as your 3 options competing for one space, basically, unless Jack plays inside and one of them else plays on the left. Although I don't see that happening. So is that? I mean, that sounds like good depth there with 3 players that are all competing for it. But does that make sense, or is that an area that can be improved in the summer? Do you think?
It's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, Traore's 4 goals in the last 6 games or last 7 games. So
I think so.
He's been informing. Smith was bigging him up as well after Southampton with his work rate. So he's still adjusting to the Premier League. He's Traore. Work ethic wise, and it's not all about with the ball. Do you know what I mean? It's without the ball as well. You got to help cash out behind you, and he's starting to do that now. Yeah, so he's adapted quite well. El Ghazi, he should find himself quite unlucky to be out of the team. To be fair, 5 in 5 he scored. He was up for Player of the Month December. He was out of the team again. But Traore, so
harsh game, isn't it? Football,
brutal game. So he's twiddling his thumbs on the bench now. He's about scoring 5. I think he might be the 3rd highest goal scorer. And then Trezeguet, forgotten man almost. Hasn't featured in the last 7 or 8 games since West Ham, and he's hamstring and COVID and whatnot. So it's easy to forget as well. Trezeguet was the number 1 starter at the start of the season, wasn't he, on the rise?
Yeah, his work rate's so highly valued.
Go-to man. So it's good options to have from now until May. And then it'll be up to Villa to sit down. Sporting director Johan Lange will sit down and assess: do we want these lads here? Are they good enough to kick Villa onto a new level? And it's up to them to take the shirt now and take the chance while they can. Villa mean business. I've mentioned this now. There's no going back. There's no more relegation battles now. I firmly believe that, the way they're going. So
I hope so.
Next destination's Europe for me, and now they look to the summer again to bolster once more. And Nassif, Suarez and Wes Edens will give Smith the cash, make no mistake about that. So, yeah, Villa on to big things here. And, yeah, it's up to the players now to warrant their place in this Villa squad, because Smith don't take no prisoners with his selection and his lack of substitutes, does he? He's sticking to his guns, and the 11 that start, the 11 that deserve it. So it's up to the players to take the chance when they get it.
There's a question here from Phil Curley. He says, is Milo Rashica still available? What happened with that? That was the go-to, wasn't it, in the summer? And it's like, maybe in January we'll go back in for him, and not heard a peep from that all January.
Just agents and whatnot. That was just a total merry-go-round, to be honest. Yeah, Villa did look at him, and just murmurings back and forth over in Germany. He went on strike, didn't he? And just a story that's gone on and on and on. So yeah, I'd like to speak to Smith one day. Did you actually go in for Milo Rashica? Just to nip it in the bud, but yeah, he's a name that's always been mentioned. But Villa got Bertrand Traore in the end, so similar kind of player. So
yeah,
he's done well.
Another one that went out the door over the weekend that I almost missed but did see, it was Henry Lansbury, which was a mutual termination in the end. And then a few minutes later, I saw that he popped up in a Bristol City jacket looking on like a throne or something. He was like sat in this really nice suave chair, beard, moustache. He's an attractive man, isn't he? We've also had Orion Nealon that obviously left it as a free agent. He went to Norwich. I think that was today.
Fair play to him.
Bit of a weird one from Norwich, that, to be fair, but yeah, fair play to Orion. Phil also said I'd take Neto from Wolves. Yeah, I also would take Neto. That's an interesting one, really, with Wolves, because now they're not as good as they once were, and Villa are kind of back on top dogs. They've got a lot of good players that you'd look at and go, well, they might not be at Wolves for much longer. They might have to go off to a Man United or a Chelsea or whatever, or Spurs. Maybe that's Villa now. Maybe it's Villa going in for a Ruben Neves or a Pedro Neto or whoever, putting a cheeky bid in for our Midlands rivals. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Tables have turned, hasn't it? I mean, this time last year, Wolves are flying high in Europe. And Wolves fans abroad singing about the Villa, mind the gap and all that, and boom, it's changed within a heartbeat, hasn't it? So be careful what you wish for there. Just football can change so quickly. It's all rosy at Villa Park now, and a bit of disarray at Wolves. So
hopefully it's not we're having this conversation again in a year's time.
Just goes to show how cricket can change.
Okay, so my final point for this little short January podcast. Thanks everyone who's watched live on Facebook, by the way. You've helped kind of guide the conversation, which we love to see.
Yeah, nice one.
Is the squad overall, and again, this is one for the Facebook comments. I want to know whether we're happy with the squad that we've got going into this next 19 games. Depending on what your expectations are for Villa, if you think they can seriously get into a challenge for the top 6, I'm a little bit concerned that we're probably a little bit short in terms of depth for that challenge, because we've got to do, although having said that, all we've probably got to do, and I know this is simplifying it a bit, is what we've just done in the first half, do the same again. And the results haven't all been brilliant. It's not like we've won 15 games out of 19. It's like, we'll just do that again, and it's an impossible feat. We've had defeats in there. We've had silly points that we've dropped. We've had things go against us. So it's not impossible that Villa do the same again in the second half of the season and mount a challenge of high 60s, low 70s points, and you're seriously looking at a top 6, top 5 finish at that stage, possibly even higher, depending on what the league's like. So I think if we're trying to mount that, this squad might be a bit too weak to gain 70 points in a season. It depends on fitness, freak injuries, things like that. If that does happen, the depth behind the first 11 isn't quite there. If your expectation is 8th to 10th, I think Villa can probably not coast towards that, but I think they're good enough to just win enough games to get to that points total of high 50s, low 60s. So are we happy with the squad, where we are and what we're going for? At the midway point, how do we assess it? What's your target for the rest of the season, Ash, and where do you think we'll finish?
Villa have won 10 games out of 19. That's some doing. And they should have won more as well. Burnley sticks out like a sore thumb. So perhaps the points tally for me is probably done them down a bit, to be honest. It should be more.
I agree. Yeah.
So with that said, they're on to an absolute stormer. So games are coming thick and fast after that COVID break, haven't they? And they've got West Ham Wednesday. Obviously, they flew down to they had Burnley last week, flew down to Southampton, come back. West Ham at Villa Park on Wednesday. And then it's quick turnaround for Arsenal again on Saturday in the early kickoff. So 2 sides in and around Villa there. Villa just three points off West Ham in 5th with 2 games in hand on West Ham. So Villa will start to look up. Yeah, I mean, winning 10 games out of 19 is some doing, to be honest with you. And like I mentioned earlier, only Liverpool and Man City have had a better average goals for ratio. So they're on to a winner. And obviously, everyone knows the defensive exploits this season, 10 clean sheets as well.
Yeah.
Just bodes well. Maybe they need to see out games more and look at that Burnley result. I don't know how they lost that game, to be honest. And they'll be kicking themselves off that. But they bounce back straight away. And when you lose a game, it's important to bounce back with the win straight away and get back on that little mini run of form. So for me, I think top 8 surely with this squad, knocking on that European door. So it's going to be an exciting ride for me from now until May, and I'm backing the lads to do it. I really am. I've seen enough. So yeah, I think Villa fans will be right to dream a little, knock on the European places the way they're going. So yeah, I'm glass half full, man, and I think they can do it.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. There's a comment from Ray who says, would Europe be even good for us with the amount of games and not having enough depth? Now,
good question.
Obviously, we cover, the company covers different clubs, and I've been doing a few podcasts there for Deadline Day, and people talking about Nottingham Forest and Derby and Stoke. If Stoke got promoted, would they be good enough to get back in? Would they be good enough to survive in the Premier League? To me, that's always been like a weird hypothetical question, as if like there's no summer transfer window. Like, yes, the Villa of the 1st of February wouldn't be good enough for Europe because we aren't deep enough. But if we got into the top 6, we would sign another 5, 6, 7 players, and all of a sudden you have got the squad depth. So that becomes a bit of a moot point to say, the squad's not big enough, because it would be if you qualify. It's going to be difficult because Wolves were very good for 2 or 3 years, and they never managed to quite get into that top 6. They finished 7th and got into Europe with the FA Cup or whatever it was. So it can be done, and it's not an impossible feat. It's mad because this time, well, not this time last year, but at the end of last season, you were thinking, well, if we get 16th, 15th, maybe 14th, that'll be a good season. I'll take it. Whereas now, if you said, "Oh, Ash, if you finish 15th, would you be happy with that?" You'd be going, "No, that's a massive disappointment," because Villa were 3 points off 5th at the halfway point. Yeah, it's going to be difficult to actually break into that top 6 and get into Europe. I think if we finished 9th or above, I'd still class that as a very good season, because we've still not really been hit with any major injuries. The odd suspension here and there, but nothing to throw us off too much. You know, if Emi Martinez got injured, for example, or Ollie Watkins, or Grealish, obviously, you'd be in serious trouble. But that's again an obvious point, because anyone who loses their best player, like Jimenez and Wolves, that's obviously going to make a massive impact, isn't it? So if Villa stay injury free, I don't see their form dropping off in terms of they'll just suddenly go to pot and start playing poorly. They're clearly very rigid and structured, and they know what their jobs are and they're good at it. The only thing that will derail Villa's season is injuries or a lengthy suspension or something similar. If that doesn't happen, it's possible Villa will get into Europe if 7th place does it as well, with whoever wins the cup. But I just don't want to sit here and be like, yeah, of course we'll do it, because that's silly. But I'm also realistic to think that, this is a possibility. And when we first started the podcast this season, we were looking at it going, oh, we've only played 5 games. Like, when we've played 10, when we played 15, when we played 20, we'll assess it then. We're at the halfway point now, and we're in serious contention of getting into Europe next season. So, all aboard the European bus. I'm all for it. Let's just, again, take it a couple of games at a time. Like you said, West Ham and Arsenal up next are massive. If you get 4 points there or 6, then top 6 is absolutely on there. If you lose them both, you'd start thinking, okay, maybe there's a few cracks in this Villa side, and maybe they won't quite do it. But long way to go yet. And I do think that we're in for an exciting end to the season, and I'm really looking forward to the remaining half. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for those watching this on YouTube on Tuesday morning, or if you're listening to this as a podcast, then leave an iTunes review, get involved in the comment sections and share the podcast. We do appreciate it. We'll be back again on Wednesday night for a post-match review of the West Ham game, and then again Saturday. Like you said, Ash, the games just keep coming, so the podcasts keep coming too. Thank you for joining me. This is late evening, only a couple of hours to go and we can go to bed. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you for listening to Claret Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.